Have you tried buying tickets to a concert lately? Have you tried going to a ski resort on a weekend? How about going to any national park in the US? Assuming you've done any of these or 1,000 other overcrowded activities in the last decade or so, you've probably said to yourself, and anyone who cared to listen, something like, "Everything wasn't this crowded when I was a kid," or "Tickets used to cost $10, how is it $500?" or some other variation on that theme. The sad truth is that even though these kinds of statements tend to sound like older adults pining for their lost youth, this is absolutely true. Everything is more crowded now than it was when you were a kid, or even just a couple decades ago. A few key factors seem to have created this new paradigm wherein nothing can be enjoyed in peace. And in this video, I will explore those factors and what we might do to alleviate them. We'll look into why this is happening by diving into topics like population growth, market changes, and the rise of influencers, or as I like to call them, FOMO peddlers. Before I go on and get into this first section, I do need to say that as someone born in 1980, I consider myself part of the Xennial generation. Through this channel, I aim to explore the world from the unique perspectives that we possess. These videos showcase my philosophical understanding of a subject, supplemented with verifiable facts and information to support my beliefs. If you disagree, I welcome your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. As always, there are chapters in the description that will let you skip to any section you want. If you're new here at the Xennial Philosopher, thanks for checking out my video. I hope you'll return soon to continue expanding your perception and growing your mind alongside me. Now, let's see why everything is so damn crowded. A significant part of the problem ties into something I talked about in my last video on the death of subcultures. Cashing in and popularity are killing things, or at the very least, making them unpleasant. It is an interesting phenomenon that happened not long after I got out of high school. A thing called influencers came into the limelight. And this section will discuss how influencers made your favorite concert destination in California a nightmare of high cost, traffic, and endless lines. You hear me discuss influencers on my YouTube channel, which aims to influence individuals to think more deeply about the world, society, and its inhabitants. While it may seem ironic to critique influencer marketing, rest assured that I do not intend to promote dubious products solely for financial gain. With that out of the way, let's talk about influencers and how the marketing mechanisms associated with them have ruined so many things. To begin with, let's quickly look at what an influencer is, and then we'll look at what they do and how that is ruining things for everyone. An influencer, in its most basic definition, is a person or a thing that influences others. So that could be a TV or print ad, or it could be an online ad, or maybe a friend's recommendation. Hell, you could call a car salesman at an old school high pressure car dealership an influencer because they influence their customers to buy all kinds of add-ons they probably don't need. But in the 2020s, we have a modified definition because of the rapid rise of influencer marketing. In this context, the term influencer is defined as a person who can influence potential product or service buyers by promoting or recommending the items on social media. I'm sure you see the correlation there, like why this phenomenon didn't start until after 2000. Social media didn't rise into prominence until the early 2000s. MySpace arguably marks the beginning of what many call the social media era, in which we still live. Things started heating up in 2004 as MySpace was all the rage for online social interactions, having reached 1 million daily users, with a few competitors like Friendster nipping at their heels. But the good times didn't last, and by 2012, Facebook had taken over as the king of social media, leaving the likes of MySpace and Friendster with virtually non-existent market shares. As the era of social media came into dominance, marketers began to see the potential in some of social media's superstars. In other words, they saw that some people on these sites were amassing followings of millions of people, and these people would happily listen to any suggestions or advice these influencers gave them. The marketers were savvy and fed on people's fear of missing out, or FOMO, so they could push crap on people with the full-throated endorsement of their customers' favorite online personality. Initially, this approach was used to sell things like clothing and supplements, but quickly grew to encompass literally anything that can be bought and sold, like experiences, vacations, services, and just about anything else. If you ask me, I think this is a good reason not to tell others about awesome things that you find. This is, without a doubt, a significant factor that impacts the number of customers or visitors something might have by creating fictionalized and fantastical versions of their lives. But these influencers were not solely responsible. There are at least 2 other major factors that made everything crowded. One of those factors was, without doubt, the paradigm shift that happened in how marketing was done in the early 2000s. In addition to the entirely new and novel marketing being shoved down our throats by influencers since the early 2000s, another force has been at work to ensure maximum profits for anyone selling anything. That force was born out of a collaboration between psychology and marketing, and has dramatically impacted how we consume everything. In one of my first videos about memory, I talk about a psychologist named Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize in economics because of his groundbreaking research into the realities of human decision-making. In fact, I probably need to do a whole video about him and Amos Tversky at some point. Anyway, Kahneman won his Nobel Prize because the decision theory he developed shows that people are not rational creatures, and assuming that they are is a false conjecture. Kahneman proved that no amount of planning and rational thought would matter at the actual decision point, because when humans make a choice, none of that matters. At the precise moment of decision, emotion takes over, and our brains make the choice that is least likely to cause regret. Before Kahneman's revelations, all financial planning and forecasting were done with the highly false hypothesis that people they were attempting to predict the habits of would make rational and logical choices. Kahneman showed them a way to understand the realities of human decision-making. Therefore, financial forecasters were immediately able to make significantly more accurate predictions, which helped Wall Street make more money. Now, people who worked in marketing firms and departments worldwide saw what was happening in finance, and it got them thinking. Could this new decision theory help us make better advertising? As you already know, it didn't take them long to adopt these new approaches, and since then, the entire marketing and advertising industry has taken a severe left turn, changing their approach to virtually everything. The first significant shift was to stop asking and reasoning with targets of an advertising campaign. Kahneman's theories showed that no one would be realistically making their buying decisions on anything other than emotion, so they leaned heavily into it. Do you ever wonder why you no longer see those 4 out of 5 doctors recommend this product ads? Decision theory showed them that people don't make purchase choices based on simple reason or logic. If you were to get into a time machine and go back to the 1980s or 90s and did an assessment of all the various forms of advertising, you would see a large percentage of it was experts validating and imploring people to use a product. Suppose you did the same kind of review today in the 2020s. In that case, you'd see the vast majority of advertising is based on getting at your emotions, often your FOMO or insecurities, with influencers endorsing the product or service, or actors that are portraying actual customers giving testimonials. The other significant shift we saw in advertising at this time was a shift from more physical formats like magazines, billboards, and television commercials to more ephemeral formats like Google Ads and YouTube mid-roll ads. Part of this was precipitated by people moving away from these physical mediums and toward having their phones in front of their faces all day. The other part was that marketers realized that people hate advertisements. They hate them so much that people are constantly inventing new ways to circumvent them. First, you could mute the TV and go use the restroom. Then there was a VCR where you could fast forward the commercials. After that came TiVo, and now it's ad blockers, but they all had the same goal: letting us skip or avoid advertisements. Since they realized no one wanted to see an ad and everyone was looking for any way to avoid them, marketers began seeking alternative ways to get to you. This is why almost everything is an ad now, from YouTubers pushing BetterHelp and VPN services to product placement on your favorite streaming and network shows. Regardless of how you consume information and media, there is a good chance you are being fed sneaky ads constantly, and a surprising number of them impact your buying decisions. Don't believe me? Think about the last time you ordered something you didn't need from Amazon or Target because you saw it on Instagram or a YouTube video. Or how about when a TV show does a special episode from Hawaii or Paris? Does that make you want to go there immediately? How many modern trends can be traced back to a clever marketing campaign that didn't look like marketing? I think a lot. So now we know that social media influencers are pushing everyone to try whatever they're getting paid to sell. And advertisers are openly using manipulative, psychological tricks to get you to fork over your money. Both of these had big impacts on why everything is so damn crowded and oversold now. But there is one last major factor we have to consider, and it's a simple one: population. It is more overcrowded. A simple fact contributes heavily to this overwhelming feeling that everything and everywhere is always overcrowded. They are. While all these previous factors impact these things, the most significant factor is the fast-growing population. When I was born in 1980, there were 4.4 billion people worldwide. When my parents took me to an amusement park or a restaurant in the late 80s, there were literally fewer people in the world who could even be there. Today, in 2023, there are just over 8 billion people in the world. That is nearly double in 40 years. But obviously, all these people don't live in your town, and they can't all be vacationing in the same place as you at the same time, can they? No, but some proportion of that population boom affects the population at anything and everything. Okay, before I go too deep into the worldwide population in the 2020s, let's quickly look at how we got here in the first place. There weren't many accurate census records from too far back in history, but we do know that as long ago as 3800 BCE, the Babylonian Empire was one of the first to take an official population inventory. Although they didn't limit it to people, they counted things like livestock and honey and milk. But despite the spotty population numbers, historians have a pretty good idea of the overall human population. As you can see, it took a very long time to reach 1 billion people. The oldest world population estimates I could find went to 10,000 BCE, and it's generally believed that there were about 1 million people in the world then. It took our species another 9,500 years before we reached 100 million. Let that sink in for a second. 9,500 years to go from 1 million to 100 million, the estimated population in 500 BCE. After hitting 100 million, the population grew steadily for another 2,350 years to reach roughly 1 billion people worldwide by 1850. But by the time we reached 1 billion humans roaming the Earth, the exponential nature of humanity was becoming plain for all to see. Between 1850 and 1950, just 100 years, the worldwide population grew from 1 billion to 2.4 billion in 1950. So we went from almost 10,000 years to increase to 100 million, then 2,350 years to reach 1 billion, and only 100 years to more than double that. Exponential growth like this is not sustainable in any ecosystem, and Earth is no exception. But even when I was a child in the 1980s, the population was only 4.4 billion, so there was still some space left to stretch our legs. Fast forward to 2023, and at the time of writing this script, there are an estimated 8.1 billion people worldwide. That is just too damn many. So you are competing against at least 2 times as many people as your parents did, and as much as 4 times as many as your grandparents did. Assuming you're around my age, in your mid-40s. That means when you want tickets to the big concert coming to your town, or if you take a trip to one of our amazing national parks, or even if you take a destination vacation, there are more people looking to do the exact same thing than there were in the past. So now that we've got a good grasp on why everything is so damn crowded these days, let's take a look into ways to make it better, or at the very least, less onerous. Conclusion. What can we do? We now know why the park, island, or concert are so crowded, but what can we do to enjoy some of the best things of our times? Well, for one, we have to stop pining for the old days, which has been a significant problem for most people. You cannot go back in time. And really, would you want to? Sure, you could go to Disney World and ride all the rides, or maybe get tickets to the Super Bowl if you wanted, but not everything was as excellent as you and lots of people remember it. Well, for one, wishing the world were more like it was in the 20th century is like wishing for half the population to be dead. I mean, if you're Thanos, that makes sense, but if you aren't a cold-hearted villain, then why shouldn't all these other people get to experience things? Just because more people want to buy, try, or go to something doesn't mean they don't all deserve it at least as much as you do. I'm reminded of something that many influential people have said in different ways over the years, but I'll go back to what might be the original from Søren Kierkegaard. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. This, I believe, explains the issue of always pining for the past, for making things great again, because when we look at the past, it makes sense. The past is something that we can process and understand perfectly well, while at the same time, we cannot have that same experience regarding the future. The future is unknown, scary, and definitely different from what we know and cherish today. Instead, we need to be aware of that tendency to opine about what was and what could have been, which will steal those precious moments from you and leave you feeling hollow and frustrated with everyone and everything in the world. Aldous Huxley said, "Technological progress has merely provided us with more efficient means for going backward." If you think about this, it makes sense. We have movies, TV, music, books, and even home videos of these times, making it so much easier for us to spend our lives living in the past. There is a fix. Embrace the present, take joy in the surge of humanity we're experiencing, and delight in the fact that so many souls get to experience this world in our amazing time. We cannot change or return to the past, and we can't spend all our time worrying about the future. But we can embrace and enjoy the present, which is the best way to enjoy it all. What did you think about these concepts? Do you plan to learn more from the resources below? Did you hear something you'd like me to do an entire video on? Let me know in the comments if your interest has been piqued by any of the subjects covered here at the Xennial Philosopher. Check out the references and links to related videos and articles in the description to learn more about this video's topics. If you still need to subscribe to the channel, remember so you won't miss out on new videos to expand your mind and grow your perception.